are recording this session. So I just started the recording of this session, and I want to make sure that you all can also hear me. So on the left-hand side of your screen, you should see a chat bot. And if in that chat box, you can type in, yes, I can hear you. I can see your material. That's really helpful. So Lisa, Brandy, Frank, and Vanessa, can y'all hear me? Awesome. So this morning we're going to be talking about testimonials, where they show on your website, how do you enter them in, and the second thing we're going to be talking about is surveys. And so before we jump all the way into the how-to portion of this, I really just want to take a little bit of time and talk about what makes a good survey and why would you use them. I think that we live in a land right now where we're bombarded by surveys day in and day out. What's new? What's going on? Can you answer my survey? And so if you're going to use surveys in your business, I think surveys are a very good tool to use. However, I think you also need to be very selective when you choose to use them. Things like showing surveys, open house surveys, transactional surveys, asking how your team did are really, really good times to use those. Also, you may want to use one for after a transaction if you're a team leader on how your team did. So those are great times. I think that we oftentimes get too bombarded by surveys that don't matter. And we're going to go through a few things that make a good survey here really quickly. The first one is when you write your questions so they are simple and to the point. How many of you have taken a survey and by the time you read to the end of the question, you don't actually know what the survey is asking? Because there are maybe 4 questions within this question and they give you like a yes or no choice. It happens all the time. It's really, really irritating. It's also very frustrating to get results as the person who's sending out the survey when you are asking multiple questions in one. So when you're setting up your survey, make sure you're writing questions that are simple and to the point. The next thing, please keep, good morning, Candace, your survey short. We all live in a land where we have a lot to do. So when you're creating your survey, I want you to create it with the mindset that someone could complete it in 5 minutes or less. If it's longer than 5 minutes, it likely needs to be a phone call to that individual to have a conversation rather than a survey. So 5 minutes or less. I say, hey, people are going to spend an average of about 30 seconds to a minute on your survey. So no more than 10 questions. The third thing I want you to keep in mind as we're writing our surveys is that your questions should be neutral. So it's very easy to steer people when you're writing a survey. For example, if you are the listing agent and you write an open house survey to get feedback on the home and you think the home is overpriced. Hey, Deanna. So your goal, you think, oh, my seller has overpriced this listing and I want the survey results to come back and say that it is overpriced. If you're writing that question in a survey, an example of making that question not neutral would be, do you feel that this house was overpriced? Yes or no. You're putting that idea that it's overpriced in their brain. An example of how you could make that question neutral would be, can you please provide a suggested price for the listing? Or please provide feedback on how you felt this listing was priced. So really when you're creating a survey to get good feedback, you want to make sure your questions are neutral. The 4 things that you want to do is, and there are people who disagree with me on this, and so I would actually really appreciate what your feedback is on this. Make the answers to your questions optional. If someone's taking your survey and they don't want to answer the question, let them go on to the next question without answering it. I would rather have someone opt out of a question but complete my entire survey than have them get to the 3rd question in my survey of 10 questions, not want to or not have an answer for something and then close out on the survey completely and not start it. So how many of you agree with that? Making that question optional so you get the most questions in your survey answered versus mandatory answers for everything. Yeah, so it makes a difference in the number of responses you get. It also makes a difference if we're going to talk about the last question in your survey, and it makes a difference in what people type. So I strongly believe that the last question of your survey should be, do you have any additional feedback or questions for me? So with an essay box, so that people can just type what they want to type in that box. If you make all of your survey questions mandatory, the feedback I tend to get in that last question I ask for what other options or what other feedback do you have is, this was an extremely frustrating survey to fill out. And if I've made them all optional, I tend to get really good feedback, especially with things like when I'm getting feedback on transactions or when I'm getting feedbacks on the webinars that I'm doing. It's very different when I have an optional question versus when I have a mandatory question. So keep that in mind. And the last thing that you need to do before you have a survey that you're using is you need to proofread your survey. There is nothing more frustrating or nothing that makes you look more unprofessional than not reading your survey and your survey answers before they send out. And we all are guilty of this, going too fast, sending things out, not having a second set of eyes on them. If you don't have a second set of eyes on your survey, read it out loud to yourself before you send it out and save it, so you make sure it makes sense. Reading something out loud to yourself will automatically change the way that it reads, because your mind reads what's written and not what you meant to say. Does that make sense to y'all? Cool. So again, just a quick recap, the 5 things to do when you're doing a survey. 1, write questions that are to the point and short. 2, keep your survey short, 5 minutes or less, no more than 10 questions. 3, keep your answers neutral, or your questions neutral, so you get honest feedback. 4, make sure your survey questions are optional. And 5, proofread your survey before you send it out. So let's actually jump into how do you create a survey within your IQ office. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to start sharing my screen with you. If y'all can just type yes in that chat box once you can see my screen, that is super helpful. And what we're going to do is I'm actually going to go in, I'm going to act as an agent so that we can see what it looks like. So from within your IQ office, and I'm going to make this bigger so it's big on your screen too, you have the ability to create your own survey. So if you want to do an open house survey or a showing survey or a transaction survey, which are the 3 types of surveys that I recommend that you have, let me type this in the chat box so that you have that list. Open house survey, transaction survey, and showing survey are the 3 that I recommend. You're going to go and you create your survey when you go to the left-hand side of your screen and click on marketing. And then when you scroll all the way to the bottom of that marketing header, you can go in and there's a section that is called My Surveys. So when you open that up, you're able to create a new survey by clicking the plus new button in the upper right-hand corner. So again, we went to marketing, we scrolled down to My Surveys, and then we're going to create a new survey by clicking plus new in the upper right-hand corner. So we're going to name this My Transaction Survey In-House. So this is the survey I'm going to send out to my agent within my office after I complete a transaction with them. So I'm doing a transaction with Deanna. I want to get feedback on how I did during that transaction, and all of that piece. I'm going to send Deanna a survey. I'm assuming you're all nodding your head. Yes, that makes sense. Perfect. Thanks, Lisa. So there's some things you can add in here. If you want a specific end date and time, so you want the survey to turn itself off automatically, you can do that. You would click here, select the date and time to enter in. You also can have a max response. So if you only want 100, you can do that. I know that we do have a couple admins on the phone or on the call today. So what I want to do is just quickly show you underneath the admin button, there is a section underneath the admin. Where is it? Admin manage content surveys, where you can create company surveys. So if I go there, it's going to show you a very similar screen. The difference is these surveys become available for everyone to choose from. They cannot edit them. So if you want to create your own survey, again, marketing, and then we're going to go to that surveys button. Everything else from within the survey creation is the same. So we're going to call this a transaction survey in-house. And then I'm going to say multiple responses from the same PC. Do I want that to happen? Yes or no? If you choose no, and a husband and a wife share a computer and they both go to answer it, they will not both be able to answer the survey. Is it active? When do I want my reminders? My first reminder I want done after the first day. My second reminder I want done after the fourth day. And then what is the completion message? So after I send this out, what is the completion message that I want to be sent out? And I can write this. I can say, hello, and I might want to put my agent's signature in here at some point. So I can say, hey, my agent first name, my agent last name. Thank you for participating in our survey. We look forward to working with you in the future. Okay, it can be something as easy as that. If I want it to sign with my first name, I can simply click add and it will insert my first name, my last name. Maybe I would like it to have my agent email and my cell phone. Then I click next. Once I click next, I'm going to be entering into actually creating my survey questions. So this is where you're going to type in those questions. Again, remembering we're keeping it to 5 to 10 questions at most. And there are several types of questions you can ask. You can ask questions that have a single line answer. You can select a question that has multiple choice answers with one answer. That means I've got an A, B, C, D choice. I can only pick A, B, C, or D. I can also do that with multiple answers. I can also do a comment or an essay box. I can do a testimonial, or I can do a rating. So I could actually make this first question in my survey about transactions with someone in my office be something like, please rate the communication level of during this transaction. Please rate it. They're going to get a rating. It's not required, and I can click next. When I click next, it's going to ask, do you want to do nothing? You're done. Or do you want to add another question? I can click add another question. And then I might say my second question is, what is the address of our transaction? Single line text. It's optional, so required is no. There's no validation. Previous or next. Would you enjoy working with me again? And maybe this is a multiple choice with one answer. When I do a multiple choice, I can see at the bottom here, there's a default values box, and there's a line at the bottom with a plus and a minus right here, and a line. This is where you enter your values, absolutely. Maybe. Or maybe it's a maybe, and then maybe it is if I had to. Had to, and then maybe you put in one that would say, I would rather not. And so I can see all my answers in this box. Let me scroll in so you can see it a little better. I can see all my answers in this box here. If I want to move them, I've got arrows right here. So I can actually move them up and down if I would like. Then I can click next. I can continue adding questions. Maybe this is going to be my last question. So that last question, as I said earlier, I really like to make be, is there any additional feedback you would like to provide? Required, yes or no. It's an essay box so people can write what it is. And then after I add all my questions, I'm going to click do nothing, I'm done. Once I do that, it takes me to the main edit screen. But I want to show you what this screen includes. So I can actually see here, here's my transaction survey. I can see all the details, my title, my completion message. Underneath the layout, I can see my 4 questions that I have. If I want to go in and edit one of those, I click on the actions button next to the question I want to edit, and I can change that. And then I can see that there's a recipients tab. So I can actually go in and add recipients based on contacts, based on contact types, based on an access group if I'm an admin or an agent. So I could go in and I could say, hey, I need to send this to Kristen Fleming. We just did a transaction, save. I can say, all right, I would like to add this to, all right, I've actually got, let's see. I've got Will here. I just did a transaction with him, and I'm going to click save. As your recipients receive the survey and they fill out their responses, they will populate underneath this summary tab, where I'll be able to see all of the responses from my survey. On my details page, if I don't want to send it out using this recipients tab, on my details page, I also have the ability to use a web link. When I click that, it actually will create the HTML code so a survey could show on my page. I also could do an email link. When I click the email link, I get a simple copy and paste email link that I can paste into an email. I can paste it into my Facebook. I can do a lot of things. I also can see my response statistics. So I can actually see right now that I've got no responses to my survey. And as I get responses, I'll be notified through the system. Are there any questions so far just on how I go in and I create a survey or add questions? Are there any questions on that piece of it so far? Okay. The other thing I do want to mention is if you're creating your own action plan. So I've created my action plans here, and I want to go in and I want to look at maybe my online leads. One of the items that I can add is a send survey. So I can actually have this be a website feedback survey or a rate my service survey or whatever survey you've created. You can actually choose from this survey box down here what those surveys are. So again, to add a survey to an action plan, you're going to go into Tools and Preferences, My Action Plans, select the action plan that you would like to add it to, And then you're going to choose send a survey and select the survey from the drop down at the bottom. Cool. Cool, cool. So the other thing I want to mention is within that survey, you saw that there was an option for testimonial. So you can add a question that is a testimonial. I'm just typing in here, if you would like to leave me a review, they are much appreciated. Then I can go in and I can actually choose the display type is a testimonial. And I'm going to say I'm done. Now I've got that testimonial built in directly to my survey. So when someone does that, it's going to automatically fill into this testimonial section. So marketing, right next to my surveys, is a section called testimonials. And when I go into that testimonials, I can see all of the testimonials that are there. If you have testimonials from an outside site that you would like to enter in, you can do that. You're going to click the plus new button in the upper right-hand corner. And then if you're an admin, so for Lisa and Denise, you can actually select the agent who it's for. If you're an agent entering this in, it's automatically going to default to your name. You can click the star ratings. You choose if it's on the website, yes or no, and then you would type in the information. So maybe this is Frank Saubers, and Frank says, working with Kelsey is always great. And then you can click save. These testimonials display on your About Me section on your company page as well as on your personal page. If you have testimonials you would like to include from Zillow, you are not going to manually enter those. You're going to go up to your name in the upper right-hand corner. You're going to click on your profile. And on your Preferences tab, you're going to scroll about halfway down, and you're going to see a section that says Zillow. And then you're going to put in, do you want your Zillow testimonials to show on your website, yes or no? And then you're going to enter your Zillow email address if it is different than your email address on your profile. So if my Kelsey at Back at You email is not what I have at my Zillow, not a big deal. I can go in and I can just type my Zillow email. And I can click save. And now as my Zillow reviews are populating, they are automatically going to show underneath this section as well. What that looks like on a live site is this. So I can see what my clients are saying here, and I can see it's a Zillow review with green stars. If it was an IQ review, it's going to just have the orange stars, and they will compile together. So if you have people reviewing you on Zillow and you're sending out a survey that has a testimonial section, they will integrate together. How's everybody doing? How many of you are currently using surveys in your business? Testimonials are awesome. And this is what I'm going to say. Go in and create one survey, open house survey. It's the survey that you want to go out at the end of an open house, or a showing survey. It's a survey you send to agents after they show your home. Go in, create one survey, send it out. Deanna, that's always the battle. And it's always good to have too many testimonials. And start somewhere. So just to recap what we talked about today, I wonder if I can, I will post on our Facebook group, I will post that handout about the surveys, the best of the 5 things to do. That will go on the Facebook page. But just to recap, we went in today, we went to marketing, we went down to my surveys, and we created a new survey by clicking the plus button in the upper right-hand corner. If we had testimonials we wanted to manually add, we went to marketing, and we scrolled down and we went to testimonials here on the right-hand side. That opened up our testimonials section. These testimonials showed on our About Me page on the website. They also showed on my About Me page on my company page. The other piece that you have is if you would like to connect already existing Zillow accounts or Zillow testimonials, you're going to go to your name in the upper right-hand corner and to your profile. And under your preferences tab, about halfway down, there's a section about Zillow where you can choose to have them shown on your website, and you just put your email in if it's different than what you're using. This has been a super fast piece today. I know that it's a lot of information. After you've created those surveys, you can always attach them to an action plan by going to Tools, Preferences, My Action Plans, and adding a Send Survey option that can automate that process a little bit for you. And if there's no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar. You will get an email about this. I also am going to do a Facebook Live later this afternoon talking about how to insert those links into an email piece that goes out automatically if you'd like. So if you're not a member of our Facebook page, please join. I hope you all have a fabulous day, and we'll talk to you soon.